I'm Scott Allen Miller. It's the 2nd of September, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. Today I'm going to be talking about my upcoming travel plans because they've changed significantly since yesterday. And I'm out for a walk as I time the distance between two of our properties on foot, because you need to know these things. We're going to get to all that right after the bump.
That you're doing fine cause you got me. I don't wanna break your little bubble, but you gotta wake up to reality. Cause I can see in your eyes, your head is full.
It's a little bit late in the day, so we're fighting some extreme sun today, but I'm out for a beautiful walk. It's really not that hot. It's quite pleasant. It's always a little bit warm here, and we really should talk a little bit about how the heat affects people because it's a constant topic, but I gotta show this bus I'm walking by before it pulls away. Okay, that's kind of an epic bus. Like, I have no idea why they have a bus painted up so colorfully with a giant lion on the back, but I mean, if you can do it, why wouldn't you? Like, that's fantastic. No idea. No idea. Nothing says on the bus what it's for, why it's like that. I got no idea, but you're certainly going to recognize that bus when it comes by. Okay, so today's main topic. Yesterday, I talked a bit about my plans, and as soon as I made a video that talked about my plans, everything would go right out the window. That's exactly what happened. So just a whole bunch of things came up, and I talked to Ozzy, who's my co-pilot, or maybe I'm the co-pilot, on a trip around South America, and we really want to do an amazing, first of all, just an amazing trek that we want to do. And we want to do a ton of recording and videos and stuff for the show. Like, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be amazing stuff, right? Amazing drive warp footage and amazing vlog footage and some others. Like, it's just going to be great. And so we've been really looking forward. We've been trying to plan for forever. And of course, as soon as we get so close, we're about to buy the tickets, we figure out a bunch of things need to change. Of course, as you do that last minute planning, it's like, oh wait, there's this, there's that. And then just a bunch of stuff comes up, and we have conflicts with other people that are leaving the office. And, you know, partially with Nicaragua taking off so much, there's a lot of work going on with that. It's keeping us really busy, and a lot of stuff around the house, and a lot of stuff for him with things going on in his life. And it kind of all hit at once. We were racing, and the timing worked out really badly with my Costa Rica requirements to leave. So it's not a requirement to go to Costa Rica. My requirement to leave Nicaragua was like a week ahead of when I needed to go, which meant I was going to be going to Costa Rica and like sitting around for an extra week, which is crazy expensive, not practical at all. So that was not going to be good, but you couldn't come back because I'd immediately turn around and go back again. Like, just all kinds of things were not lining up very well as far as when we had to do things. So it just didn't work great. So here's what we're going to do. That's all the excuses as to why we're not doing what we said yesterday. So what we're doing, I have to do a trip to Bolivia in November. That's already, some of the flights are already purchased. It's gotta happen. So we're trying to come up with cool stuff that we can do while doing that. It's a business trip, so I've got to be there, and I've got places I got to go. But there's going to be a bit of time to relax as well, partially because some of the time we have to acclimate to the Andes, right? We're going to be so high because the bulk of the time of work is in La Paz, which is the highest city in the world. So it's ridiculously high. Altitude sickness is going to be just awful, and we're going to feel like crap. So gotta acclimate. So we gotta spend some time in Santa Cruz, gotta then move up to Cochabamba, then move up to La Paz, and it's still gonna be bad. Not looking forward to that bit, but I really want to see Bolivia. It's gonna be cool. And so we're trying to figure out how to maximize that trip and get a bit of really interesting, great footage in and around Bolivia, possibly into Peru when we do that. And then we're splitting the road trip portion off to another trip. So our current thinking is that maybe around March, I'm gonna fly down. We are not gonna do Bolivia again, which is a big deal because I have to get a visa and all kinds of approval. I have to pay $160 every time I cross the border, all kinds of stuff. So if we can avoid Bolivia on the next trip, which sucks because it would make a lot of things really easy, but it's a big problem as well. So we're gonna skip skip going to Bolivia on that road trip, fly into probably Paraguay. We've now figured out that I'm able to get cheap flights all over South America. It's amazing. It's like opening up a whole new world of travel options because of figuring out that San Jose has these amazing choices. So we can, I mean, this is mind-blowing, right? So San Jose is, it's not exactly one of our airports here, but it basically is one of our airports. I can take a bus to it. Bus goes directly to the airport. It's in Costa Rica, but we use it as part of Nicaragua. It's the southernmost of our Nicaragua airports. And their flights from there to South America on multiple carriers is incredible. Of course we can go to like Colombia, that's not very far, but we can go to places like Peru or even Argentina and Chile for really cheap. In fact, Chile is like $210 and Argentina is like $265. That's nuts. That's really far. Those are like 9-10 hour flights if we're not doing a bunch of stops. Sometimes the flights are like 17 hours because there's crazy stops you don't want to do. That's cheap. Now it's one way, of course. But like, you want to get down to Santiago and just go explore the city and figure out when you're going to come back? Take a bus to the airport, hop a flight for $260, no, $210. And suddenly you're in the capital of Chile. You're in the southernmost major airport in the world, I think. And I mean, how cool is that? So we really have this world of South American options available to us. Yes, it's not free. A couple $100 for a flight is still a few $100. It's not a weekend hopper kind of thing. And yeah, we still got to take a bus all the way to San Jose. That's not nothing by anybody's standards. Like, that is a long day. It's not free, but it's not terrible. But you put that all together, that is a really easy way to go to some pretty exotic locations very affordably. The cheapest that we can get to Europe, for example, is going north to Tegucigalpa, which is not hard at all. It's way easier than San Jose. And then it's like $400 to Madrid, which is still really good. But and that's going over the Atlantic, of course. But like, is that any farther? I don't think it is. It may be closer. But $400 to Europe, I mean, it's a good deal. Not very many Americans can get $400 to Europe, so we're glad that we have that option, although we haven't done it yet. I do want to try it out. I love Madrid. $400, head on over and you can be in Europe for a while. That's pretty cool. But half that price, and I'm down to South America, to places I've never been. Madrid I've been, right? And shout out to Alan, who's in Madrid as I'm doing this recording. But I'm excited. So many places, because I've never been to South America. So it's not just like one or two possible locations. There's a ton of stuff in Colombia. There's a bunch of stuff in Ecuador, but that's dangerous right now, so not doing that. But sometime. There's, you know, there's Peru, which is a huge country. Brazil, enormous country, almost the size of the United States. Like, so much to see. Even if you're like, well, we're not gonna go to the Amazon. Okay, it's a huge country. There's so much. And it's like, well, we're gonna go to the US, but we're gonna skip the Mississippi. There's still a lot of other stuff. I think I pointed this out recently. This place is for sale. I don't know how well you can see it. It's a really good location. Like, pretty prime. Right in the middle of a lot of stuff. All right, so, you know, and then, you know, Venezuela's close. Not really a place you want to go right now, but you can. Like, maybe not as an American, but if you're anything else coming from this region, Venezuela's accessible and kind of affordable, but problematic. But Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile, all of them, like, I've been looking at flights. Bolivia, all of them, pretty easy. All under $300. And maybe Paraguay was just over like $320 or something. Not very many people flying into Asuncion, but it's not terrible. It's all within reason. It's all incredibly affordable. So I'm really excited about that. So our plan now, see if I can get a little bit better light, is probably going to actually start in Asuncion, because Ozzy can drive there relatively easily and I can get there by flight, it looks like. So flying into Asuncion kind of gives us a good starting point, and then we'll head east and north. We'll go to Iguazu Falls, like we had talked about, but at the beginning of the trip instead of the end. Then we'll head to Brazil, go to, can't remember all the towns, but north of Porto Alegre, but explore a bit of Brazil. Like, Brazil just has so much. There's no way we're gonna do like a grand Brazil trip on this road trip, but I want to hit a little bit of the southern states, get a little bit of a feel for it, see a few different regions, because Brazil is so big and so unique. And I feel like of all of South America, of all the Americas, Brazil, even though it's the largest and represents more than 50% of South America, which is amazing as a statement on its own, even after you take out all of the Amazon stuff, the population that's left in the remaining portions of Brazil represents more than 50% of the population of South America. There are more Portuguese speakers in South America than there are Spanish speakers. So you have to really think when going to South America that if you're not going to Brazil, you're missing so much of the Americas experience. It is such a significant portion of everything that's going on in South America. It's amazing. And it's so little known, especially for Americans, but I think for a lot of people, I think there's just a ton of cities in Brazil that people don't know very well. And of course, you know, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, people are going there for work, Rio for pleasure, and you get a bit of tourist traffic. But I think of like the rest of Brazil, I feel like is really missing tons of potential tourist traffic. And it feels like this obscured zone where people just don't know it. People don't know what the options are. It's Portuguese, so you don't have that ease of a Spanish-speaking country. Like, Portuguese is hard, right? I've been to Portugal, love Portugal, but the language is tough. It really is. If you speak Spanish, if you speak Italian, maybe French, it's not impossible. But so many things look like other words and they're not. The sound is so not what you expect. There's enough similarity with Spanish that you think you're gonna be like, it'll be easy. And then in practice, you're like, even the Spanish speakers are like, I don't know. So it's got that as a barrier. So much of the country, like, people don't know the cities. It's kind of like China in that way, obviously on a tiny scale. But like, China has so much to offer that I know nothing about. Like, I can't tell you which really cool big cities are super cool and that you would want to go to. But it has tons of them, right? With different food, different architecture, different amusement parks, different city parks, different city planning, different public transportation, different music venues, different lifestyles, different coffee shops, you know, huge cities that rival the largest cities in other countries. And you go to China and you're like, I never heard of this, right? And Brazil's a lot the same, city after city that you've never heard of, but they're pretty big and have a lot going on. And it's a relatively wealthy country. So when you're talking about a good sized city with a good amount of money, there's a lot of stuff there, right? A lot of shopping, a lot of restaurants, a lot of, tourist activities, mostly for locals. There's just so much to explore. So I'm really excited to be going to Brazil, and a portion of Brazil that really doesn't get that many tourists. I mean, of course, people go to Porto Alegre, but it's not a place that most people know the name of. So it's certainly not on the main tourist path. It is definitely a fringe, but still kind of touristy area because it's on the water. It's a fair-sized city. It's relatively accessible, and it's pretty safe. But we're talking about not Sao Paulo, and certainly not Rio. And so I think it's gonna be good. And we're gonna be driving, right? So who drives across Brazil? It's too big, but it's got tons of obviously really good areas that are perfectly safe to drive across. And of course, the thing that makes it dangerous mostly is bad roads. You know, you're out in the Amazon jungle and you get rain, and then the roads are all mud and they wash out or whatever. But we're not gonna be in that area. We're gonna be in parts of Brazil that are so far from there that it's like a different world. One of the best memes that I've seen recently about geography, at least, is this meme that says, you know, if you go to the northern point of Brazil, The northern point of Brazil is closer to at least one point in any and every country in the Americas. Say it again. The northernmost point of Brazil is closer to somewhere, and so in some cases everywhere, in every single country in the Americas. So that includes Paraguay, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, that are really far to the south. That includes the US and Canada, really far to the north. That includes departamentos of France that exist in the New World. All those things. Every single one of those has at least one portion, and in many cases, every portion of the countries in the America are closer to that point in northern Brazil than that point in northern Brazil is to the southernmost point of Brazil. That's how big Brazil is. Northern Brazil is just slightly closer to Canada than it is to the southern point in Brazil. So when we talk about the diversity of what Brazil has, the scale of it is mind-blowing. It's basically the same size as the continental US. That motorcycle just lost their helmet. That's what happens when you wear your helmet on your arm instead of wearing your helmet on your head, which is a big thing here. People put their helmets on it because there's a law that you have to wear a helmet when you're on a motorcycle. And that's great, good law. But it doesn't say you have to wear it on your head or to wear it correctly for safety. You only have to wear it. So because of the incredible hatred of wearing helmets here, people wear them on their elbows just as often, maybe not just, but it seems like it, as they wear them on their heads. And when people do wear them on their heads, it is not uncommon to see people setting them on top of their heads, balanced precariously, and in no way going to stay on in a crash. All the expense of buying a helmet, all the effort of bringing the helmet with you, all the inconvenience of having to balance it or hold it on your arm or whatever, but not bothering to save your own life with it. That's the one step that's too far. The lack of self-preservation in Nicaraguan society, humans and dogs, is incredibly problematic. The amount that we talk about every day, you just drive anywhere, people stepping in front of cars. I had someone last week, I was driving in the city, so I'm not going super fast, right? But I'm driving between blocks. There's no reason to slow down. Guy's on a bicycle on the left. Not really where he should be, but it's okay. Old guy. Guy sees an old woman on the right. What does he do? Does he wave to her? Does he smile? Does he give her a, how you doing? No, he does not. He turns and goes directly in front of my car at a 90-degree angle, as close to a 90-degree angle as he could. He turned so sharply that I wasn't able to stop the car. I had to dodge him and slam on the brakes to have any chance whatsoever of not running him over, which caused me to nearly run over the woman that he was so desperately trying to see. And he was so smitten with this woman. She could not have been under 85. He was so enamored that he was not only willing to be run over by the car, but he fell over in front of the car. So he turned in the most asinine way you could possibly imagine, and then fell over so that there was nothing I could do but slam on the brakes and dodge him. And I missed him by inches. He was so lucky, and it was 100%. He dove in front of the car. It was insane. And the woman never even looked up. She almost got hit by the car. She almost watched some guy who was in love with her just get completely splattered all over the road. Never even paid him the time of day and just walked on. I'm gonna do a quick little update. So this place, we've been seeing this place for years, and it's actually a really good location, but the building's been terrible. We have no idea who owned it. We've been interested in it a number of times, but we never got enough information to potentially buy it. So somebody actually did buy it. Now, we've been told by taxi drivers that this is actually being constructed to be a discotheque. We're in the Barrio Sutiaba and west of the city, but we are near a university. So I can kind of see trying to put a discotheque here, but I think it's crazy. It would be cheap and there's a lot of space, so it's not the worst. And they've already done a lot of work to this building, so there's a lot of stuff going on. It was a shambles before. Now it's still a shambles, but it's a shambles with a second floor and some people in it. But I don't think it's gonna be a discotheque, but we're super interested. Every time anyone comes by, we're like, what is it? What's going on? Like, there's only so much happening anywhere. We really want to know what these projects are. They're super interesting. But the fact that there's a fried chicken truck sitting out there, I wonder if they're just not turning it into a fried chicken restaurant and adding a second floor so they have some seating or something. I don't really know. A lot of potential things. But here, I'll turn and show. The road right over there on the other side is where the university is. Some things in there. And a bunch of high schools right in front of me, and a high school behind me. It's like you're in the middle of a lot of students. So I could see having a restaurant or even a discotheque. I mean, it's not completely crazy, but it's a bit crazy for sure. It's certainly pushing what could potentially make sense as a business here kind of to the limit, because it's such an awkward location for most people. If you're one of the students walking, but these schools aren't that big. I just have a hard time imagining that the students would be able to represent enough traffic to justify building a discotheque out here, especially because it's not that far to the big city discotheques, which are already up and running, have a reputation, and are full of students. So, I don't know. We'll be keeping an eye on it. Hopefully, in about a month, we'll have a really solid idea of what they've done there. So I'm walking through a part of the city with two high schools, New Jerusalem over there and Calasanz over here, and they both have marching bands dueling across the street. They're in practice, and as you walk, you can go from one to the other, hearing them. It's wild how many high schools are in this tight little area. It's funny because we think of this as kind of the poorer, rougher market district of Sutiaba, but in reality, it's like high school central. All the private schools are out here. Everything you can imagine is in this spot. So anyway, I got distracted by Brazil, as one does. And so from Brazil, we're gonna head south into Uruguay and then into Argentina and then do a bit in Argentina. Ozzy's sister lives there, so we have people to visit. And then we're gonna head to Chile and just stay in Chile until we're done, and then I'll catch a flight home from there. And he can drive home from there. And it should be really amazing. I think Chile is what I'm looking forward to most of all that. Like, something about the Central Pacific coast in Chile, those big cities. But I don't know, Buenos Aires, that's really exciting. Asuncion is really interesting. Brazil, and the place I always wanted to go when I was young is Montevideo, Uruguay. So, I don't know. All of it just sounds fantastic. I can't wait to go. We had to push off some, but I'm hoping I'm gonna have new cameras by then, more cameras. We're gonna have the show even more solid by the time I go. We're gonna do at least Bolivia, possibly Peru before that. So that'll get a little bit of people being like, okay, they do some international stuff. There'll be another Costa Rica trip. There'll be another Texas trip all before then. So there's a bit that we're gonna be doing. And it's gonna be really interesting. And I'm super excited. And yeah. We're going to be doing South America. We're not skipping it a little bit this year. I will get the first bit of South America under my belt within 2 months. Around the 12th of November, now I'll be heading out. So October, I'm now gonna be staying here. So some of you have been looking at moving down here and you were worried that I wasn't gonna be here. I will be here. So at least after about the 5th. Because before that's my anniversary. So it's my 20th wedding anniversary this year. So we're gonna be doing something, and we're not gonna be, giving tours or anything during that time. But that is the current update to the plan. So Sorry for the update yesterday, that had to change immediately, but I'm excited about what we're gonna be doing, and obviously I'm gonna be filming like crazy. This is my exploration of tons more of Latin America to really fill out the experience, really expand those horizons of places that we can go. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now, why do visitors really think it's so hot in Nicaragua and those of us who live here don't? I've talked about this before, but we gotta cover it again. A lot of crazy kids playing in the street right now. So when you live here in Nicaragua, I think that this is something. So when I came here in 2019, well, I lived here in 2015, and it was too warm for us. We were just constantly like, this is really warm. And partially it was because of where we lived. There just wasn't a lot of air. There wasn't a lot of ability to cool down. And it just wasn't a great spot. And it is a warm country. Like, there's no getting around the fact, like, it's a warm country. So that's a given, that it's going to be warm, but it's even temperature all year round. It is not it's not something where it's hot and then cold and then it's hot again and you never get a chance to adjust. It just isn't like that. It's pretty consistently the same temperature or really close year round. Found this lovely little spot, so I just had to get a shot. So it was hot, and it is, but it's because it's the same all the time, and it never gets that hot. It feels hot because it's relentless. There's never going to be a cold day to offset the hot day, so you have to accept that. But when you do, you realize that, well, it's actually mild, right? I was talking to someone who was saying, oh, it's so hot, and I'm like, but it's not. If I go look at where I lived in Texas in the United States, it's a good 12 degrees warmer right now than it is here. So clearly it's not that hot compared to what I'm used to, and it's about the same as it was back in New York where I used to live. So it's just not the incredibly hot place that people imagine. What's important is that it's consistently hot and it's kind of humid. It's not dry, certainly not in Arizona. So because of this, a lot of people come when it's cold other places and come to Central America and say, well, I want to be warm, so I'm gonna go someplace warmer. And then they discover that it's way warmer than they were expecting because they're going from cold to warm all of a sudden. And that, of course, is gonna be a little bit shocking, and your system is gonna be like, oh, it's too warm. And then what is otherwise a reasonable temperature may not feel like one to you. Just like in New York or Texas, one of the challenges we always have is that winter and spring and fall, they keep changing, and by the time summer comes around, you've acclimated to it being relatively cool. And then you have just enough time to start to acclimate to the summer, and then it's cool again. And so your body is always trying to adjust, and this doesn't work very well because it creates a situation where you're always feeling too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter, even though if those are your temperatures year round, you'd be okay. You'd be just fine. Now, if you're in Texas, if you're in Houston, the summer in Houston is outrageously hot. And that would be very tough if you didn't have air conditioning all the time. And the other thing is, because you have air conditioning in the United States, when it's super hot, you're often not acclimating to it because you don't want to. You know it's gonna end in most places. So we gotta see this little dog. He's so cute, little puppy. Hello, little puppy. You are a little puppy. Hi. And so we sit in air conditioning to protect us from the unbearable heat because we've never had a chance to acclimate to it, and we don't want to. And so I gotta show. So where I'm coming through here, it's like a cute little square in the middle of the barrio. Just like an extra wide road. I have no idea why they built it that way, but it's cool. And so no matter what you do, you're going from hot to cold, whether it's season to season or building to outside or whatever. You're doing everything you can to not acclimate and instead make it comfortable at the moments when you can. And that's fine, that's a strategy. But the problem is you will never acclimate, and you will always need to provide comfortable spaces that are heated, cooled, whatever. And your outdoor is always going to feel too cold in the winter and too hot in the summer. And for brief moments in spring and fall, you might pass through a temperature that you like, but it's going to be brief. And it's basically guaranteed due to the inability to acclimate to the huge swings. But here in Central America, most of the region, does not have temperature changes. We're dealing with even temperatures year round. And so whatever temperature it is, it could be cold like it is in Guatemala, it could be hot like it is in Nicaragua, but no matter what, it's even. So it becomes a mild, and it's never cold. The cold of Guatemala is only like in the high 60s. The hot of Nicaragua is only in the low 90s. That total range from the hottest to the coldest is smaller through the whole region. You're much more chill. It's not that big throughout the entire region. But if you go to just a single spot in Texas, say Dallas, you can spend your summers in the hundreds and tens and your winters in the 40s with days where you're getting snow. That's a really dramatic swing. That is a swing of 80 degrees throughout the course of a year in one location. But here we're looking at a swing of only 30, maybe 40 degrees over a range of 7 countries. And if you extend that to southern Mexico and northern South America, it doesn't get any higher or lower. The region gets even bigger without the temperatures really going outside of that. So now if you get into northern Mexico, you get hotter, right? So the mildness can't be overstated. And I think when people visit, you have no sense of the mild, right? You have to be here year round and go, wow, once I adjusted, it's the same all year round. You never have to, I gotta show, this is a really cute area. Like it's a little tiny. It's such a little European cute little spot there as you walk over that little bridge. You come through the tightest little streets, and suddenly it's a little tiny bridge and a little tiny waterfall, and a guy comes by on a motorcycle with a basket of bread to sell. Like, seriously, it's so cute. It's the funniest things that you find in the middle of the city here. All right, now I've got to navigate my way out to the main road. Oh, I know where I am. Hola. Sí, es en cámara.
¿Qué es eso? ¿Esto soy yo?
Yeah. So when we say it's mild, we really mean, like, it's actually quite mild. In any place that you go in Central America, and all of Central America is very mild compared to pretty much any of the United States. But because you're generally coming from somewhere in the US that is colder at the time that you come down, you're hitting a temperature differential. Here, hola.
Hola.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Oh, un gatito. Oh. You're often enforcing a temperature differential on your trip, on your arrival, that is greater than any temperature differential that we would experience at any point in the year ever. So it's less mild to the average person visiting than it is to anyone who lives here. It's very dramatic how much this takes place in that way. Buenas tardes. And so I think when you're visiting, there's a very high chance you're going to get a completely skewed view of what the temperature's like, because they'll be like, oh, it's so hot. Sure, and I mean, I'm hiking right now and I'm sweating, but I'm walking uphill and I'm talking and carrying a camera, and I've been walking for a while. But when you come any place, right, that has a stable temperature all throughout the year, the rule of thumb is it takes roughly 2 months to acclimate. So if you've tested a place less than 2 months, you don't know. You can't, you haven't acclimated. But when you live in a place that is mild, you're able to acclimate. And this is foreign to most of the US, even places that are pretty warm, right? But it's certainly like New York or Texas, anywhere in the Midwest, anywhere in the Northeast, their temperature swings are so dramatic season to season that it's absolutely overwhelming. It's one of the reasons I don't want to live there. It's so horrible that you never ever adjust to the place you live in. And so just living in one place, and it doesn't matter if you go outside or don't go outside, it doesn't matter if you air condition or don't air condition, the seasons brutally enforce an inability to acclimate. And so living with uncomfortable weather is the absolute story of your life. And that is why you don't find very many outdoor restaurants, outdoor venues, outdoor activities in North America because of those seasonal temperature changes. It just doesn't work. Here, even though it's very warm on average, everybody who lives here has acclimated. And so there's very little need for air conditioning, even though it's hot. There's very little need for indoor activities compared to outdoor, even though it's hot, because it's the same temperature you've been working in all day, the same temperature you've been living in all day, the same temperature you had a month ago and 6 months ago and 9 months ago. And it'll be the same temperature tomorrow. And so, other than when you're out exercising and getting too warm, and you know, of course, it's warm, right? I'm not trying to say it's not warm, but it's in the 80s and 90s. It's not in the hundreds and hundreds and tens, which is what Americans tend to think of as hot when you're in the US. It's just, you don't generally go from having been 80 degrees every day or 75 degrees every day and suddenly being 95 degrees. Of course, that's gonna feel really warm all of a sudden because you've shifted. So that need to acclimate. Now, this is a big deal. There are people who live here half the year and then leave and live somewhere else. That can be rough if that other place isn't the same temperature, because you spend 2 months adjusting to this, you get 4 months that you like it, then you go somewhere else. If it's somewhere cold, you're gonna be freezing because you're like, oh, I acclimated to it being warm. Or if you go to somewhere hotter, then it's gonna be, you know, the same problem. And you're gonna come back here and be cold. Not super cold, but cold. And that constant shift, anything that causes that temperature change, makes you have to acclimate. And so one of the really big benefits, and we really feel it because we go to Houston for 2 weeks in the winter for Christmas, and it's so cold. So we stay indoors, we hide, we do everything we can. We wear layers, jeans, jackets. We never take that stuff off. We stay as warm as possible so that it minimizes the trip back. But if you're looking at Nicaragua as a place to bounce in and out of, you're pretty much guaranteeing, and maybe you're okay with that, but be aware. You're pretty much guaranteeing that when you're here, it's gonna be miserably hot. You will never get a chance to acclimate. And when we first came here, well, when I visited in 2019, after having lived here in 2017, it was only 84 degrees. But we came in November from Dallas. And Dallas was pushing snow. It wasn't snowing, but it was in the 50s, maybe the 40s. And hitting 84 degrees with a bit of humidity, it was hot. It was hot to the point that we were just sweating, doing the easy, all we wanted to do was get to air conditioning. We were so warm. But now, you give me an 84 degree day, and I'm gonna be like, whoo, I can put a jacket on. Like I'd be okay with a jacket, right? It's a completely different world. So we came in early 2021. And when we first got here, of course, for months, it was really warm. We felt it, and we were like, oh, what have we done? And we're like, and we chose León. It's hotter than Managua, and Managua's hotter than Rivas. And it's all just hotter. Everything's hotter. Why did we do this? But after 6 months, we're like, you know, didn't we used to complain about the heat in León? Now we don't think about it. We still like that we live out in Sutiaba. I say all this as I'm sweating a lot, right? And we live out in Sutiaba, and we're like, oh, there's so much more air than there is in the city. Okay, we still notice fresher days. We still appreciate going into Managua and having it be a little bit cooler. But we don't sit around in León saying, it's so hot, I can't handle it. Most days, we don't think about the temperature at all. It's just, because it's the same every day, it stops being a topic. In the United States, Canada, Western Europe, the temperature changes so much and the weather is so different from day to day that it's something you can always talk about. And it's always interesting. And it's relatively important, right? Oh, it's so hot today, we had to change our plans. Oh, it's raining so hard today, we had to change our plans. It was all these things I was expecting, and it threw me off because it changed. And here, and in a lot of places, you get this consistent day after day temperature, and you can pretty much predict the rain. Oh, we got weeks until it rains again, or we got weeks until it stops raining. Because you have that predictability, suddenly being outside and talking about the weather is no longer important, because it's just gonna be a nice day. And you just know it's gonna be a nice day, and you're good to go, because it's the same every day. There's a lot of benefit to that, but you have to embrace it. You can't fight it. You can't go back and forth somewhere and say, well, I'm just gonna, you know, only be there for 2 months at a time. You'll never acclimate, and you'll always be unhappy. Hola! You will always be unhappy if the temperature bothers you, because you're forcing a situation where your body never gets to adjust, not for real. And you're gonna take a place that's really mild and you're gonna make it feel to you like it is not mild. It is going to feel really brutally warm when it's not. And it's a shame, because living here full time, one of the things I love is how fantastic the weather is. And I would never have thought, when we decided to move in 2020, full time, to like fully move forever, not just like we did in 2015, move for that little chapter of our lives. But we decided this is the place we wanted to come. And one of the discussion points was, okay, it's hot. We like it despite the fact that it's hot. We're gonna put up with it. We know we'll adjust over time. It won't be as bad as it was. We're gonna make sure we're in a place like the beach that's better than the city, so that won't be as bad. Okay, we can do this. We can make it work. We really like Nicaragua. We'll put up with the temperature. And then once we were here for somewhere between 2 and 6 months, probably around 4 months, we adjusted to a point where we forgot that we used to think it was hot. And it started being really mild. And now when we go other places, we worry, oh, is it gonna be mild like it is back in Nicaragua? Is it gonna be predictable? We've gotten so spoiled with how good the weather is. It's so comfortable day after day. I don't need air conditioning to sleep. I don't need air conditioning throughout the day. I prefer air conditioning throughout the day. Because of my office, because of work, I do use air conditioning because I need to keep it quiet, and I got to keep the dust down because of my computer and stuff, and I need to not have my GoPros overheat while I'm uploading and stuff. Like my phone can't charge all the way because it's so warm that when it's charging, if it's not air conditioned, it'll stop charging because it's too warm. So I've got reasons, mostly on the tech side, as to why I use air conditioning a bit. But if I'm not working on a computer, it's perfectly fine being outside in the temperature all day and going out at night. We go dancing with no air conditioning. Yes, there's fans, but no air conditioning. And we don't say, oh, it's gonna be so hot. If there's a really hot day, yeah, we'll say that. But in general, we don't say, oh, it's gonna be so hot. We just go, yeah, let's go dancing. We don't think at all about the fact that it's 80 something, 90 something. And it used to be, we would go out to dinner and we'd very carefully try to find a place under the fans. And yeah, last night we were at NL Vivero and it was quite warm. It was noticeably quite a warm night. We also didn't have a fan. The fan was broken. But we don't have to sit under the fans anymore. And we don't think about which restaurants are hot and which ones are cold. All those things have gone away because we live here all the time and we've adjusted. And that is something that if you are thinking about a full-time move, or if you're, or to be warned of that if you're thinking of a part-time move, be aware that that's potentially a problem. That if you do it right, and you're here all the time, not only does it save you money and all the other things and have a beautiful culture and wonderful lifestyle and things to do and all that, but the temperatures, in the end, as long as you're evaluating Nicaragua, are gonna feel like this horrible negative to almost everyone. But to most of you, I think pretty reliably, they're going to turn into a positive over time. And at some point, without noticing it, you're gonna say, oh, wait, I really like the temperature here. I don't hate it. It is not at all what I thought. It's not at all what I remember. It's not at all what I was expecting. The mild Nicaragua temperatures are real, but you don't know it until you've been here long enough for the mildness to take effect and become something that you benefit from rather than something you have to adjust to. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe, share on social media, tell your friends about the show. If you have any questions, shoot us an email. And of course, you can sponsor the show, buymeacoffee.com/ScottAllenMiller. Does so much to help us make all this possible. Thanks for joining me. I will see all of you tomorrow.